Hello. Welcome to a victory edition of Real Hawk Talk. This is Brian Nemhauser at Hawkblogger on Twitter. And we're already trolling each other. It's tough. We'll explain for the people listening soon enough. This is episode, I believe, 102 of Real Hawk Talk. If you missed 101 and you're wondering where that happened, go check it out. We did our post-game show on Sunday after a big Seahawks victory over the Falcons in week 1. And we're going to talk all about that. Lots to break down there. And then we're going to turn our attention to the upcoming matchup, Sunday Night Football in Seattle with no fans, or no crowd, I should say, against the Patriots. So lots of fun stuff to go through today. Let me bring in the crew. This week, we've got Dana O'Gorman at Dana OG on Twitter. And Dana, can you remind me, what was your prediction for the Seahawks-Falcons game last week?
I bugged you guys so bad about that. So my prediction for that game, I was the only one that picked that the Seahawks would have over 30 points. And my prediction was it was going to be 35-24. So I have to say, I didn't get my defensive touchdown. I did think that we would get a defensive touchdown, but I was pretty close.
You were really, really close. Yeah. And somebody needs to take on the ultra optimistic perspective on this show, because we kind of don't have that. There's some spectrum of realism to pessimism that kind of goes on here. And so, you know, it's good to have somebody who represents the other side of the spectrum.
Happy to
I gotta say, I feel like the deck's a little stacked here. I mean, like our perspectives might be skewed. I think I had the worst projected record at 11-5, and I also had them going to the national champions. Like, we all had them like winning a playoff game, winning 12 games. And we're so pessimistic.
That's the floor. I mean, that's what pessimists are thinking. That's why, like, you know, I don't think anybody picked them to win a Super Bowl in this crew, right? No. So that would be that you were missing maybe the most optimistic. So we'll have to keep our search up for that. The voice you just heard, you should be familiar with by now. That is Nathan Ernst at Nathan E11 on Twitter. He is apparently a Patriots fan this week. He has got himself a Cam Newton backdrop for some reason. And
it's Auburn Cam. I didn't go Pat's Cam. I went throwback to Auburn Cam when he was maybe at his most fun and enjoyable, which is not to say that he's not fun and enjoyable now. One of the funnest players in the league. Very excited to see him play again this week.
Okay, interesting take to start Hawks podcast. And then Evan Hill at Evan in SEA on Twitter, our most polarizing co-host for sure. I was just talking about this with Evan beforehand. Like, the chat is always full of people that are like super fans of Evan and like loving all his takes, and people that are just viciously tearing him to shreds that sometimes we have to actually ban because they're so rude. So like, Evan, how are you doing, man? You handling this?
Okay? I'm doing great. The Seahawks are 1-0. They let Russ cook, just as Dana and Brian have been begging them to do all offseason long. It's good times in the Seahawks world right now. They've got an exciting Sunday Night Football game coming up. I couldn't be happier, starting the show today. I think we've got some exciting stuff to talk about, and I'm just thrilled with how Sunday went.
So, Evan, I know you well enough that I know you can handle me saying this. So after that, I look in the chat, and this is 4 things in a row. Evan sucks. I stan Evan. Evan's the best. He's so whiny. So, like, that is the range, and that's actually kind of a smaller range. There's more extremes on either side of that.
Oh yeah, especially if you dip into 49er fans. Yeah. It gets fun. Yes. It gets really fun.
Yes. So let's go round robin here for a second and talk about that Seahawks game, which I was just talking with Evan, and actually, I was watching the Patriots Dolphins game on Game Pass, and the Seahawks Falcons game, their score popped up. I forgot the Seahawks were even behind in that game. They were behind 3-0, if you might remember. And I was like, wait a second, is that a different game? Because it just never felt like the Seahawks weren't kind of in control of that game in one way, shape, or form. Dana, you were positive, optimistic going into it. Relative to your expectations, how did the game play out?
Well, I think I was as surprised as many were to see Russ throwing so much. And but I was thrilled to see it and to come out, like I said, come out swinging. I mean, that's really what they did. And I think why it didn't feel like we were ever really behind is because those first couple of plays of the Falcons, I'm like, oh Lord, here we go. Like they were chunk plays and they got down there quick, and then to hold them just to a field goal, I was like, that's a win, right? Like I was really impressed with that. And then Seattle scored so quickly, as soon, right away, especially after Russ got sacked on his first snap. I was like, oh, for God's sake. But I think that it was really, at that point, you could just feel the momentum for Seattle. Not to say that the Falcons didn't have some good plays, especially toward the end of that game. Those garbage time touchdowns really kind of irritated me because it got all those receiving yards for all those, and it screwed up the stats for those boys who love the stats so much. But overall, I was impressed with what week 1 looked like for Seattle, because that's not normally what we get in week 1 for Seattle.
Yeah. Nathan, Patriots fan, co-hosting tonight. What did you think? Did you even watch the first week of the Seahawks playing, or are you just watching the Pats Dolphins game?
I originally was a Patriots fan. That's how I got my way into football. Tom Brady, 2001. Yeah.
Lost a little.
Hitched my wagon to that underdog story. That really there were some recent or somewhat recent events that really finally put the final nail in that coffin. But yeah. Anyways, I do own a Tom Brady jersey, even. Yeah.
Are you being sarcastic about all of this? I can't tell.
No, he's being
serious. This is all true.
You own a Tom Brady jersey.
I'll get it in a second. Let me answer the question, Evan, and then I'll go get it. Sorry, what was the question? I got distracted.
Did you even watch the Seahawks game?
I did. Yeah, no, I did watch it.
Okay. Yeah, what did you think about your other team, the Seahawks?
They looked I don't know if I should say they looked awesome. I mean, they were definitely way stronger on offense, and they did all of the stuff that we've been asking for them to do on offense. And that was
wearing
really cool.
A festive sombrero and like doing a cha-cha. Like,
I was gonna say
the game you've been asking for
that
years.
Is such a calm response.
They played a pretty good game, and like, come on, this was everything.
I said they did everything we've been asking them to. Yeah, no. It was all right. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Good times.
Damn you.
He's so metered. Like he's not going to waver at all, is he?
Your wife must be a saint. Like I bet you can, like she can never like get you just to be happy, can she?
I don't know how to answer this.
That was interesting.
No, like, so, okay, back to football. I don't think that there was... They didn't come out and look like, the most dominant team I've ever seen, right? So, like,
right.
If anyone was expecting that, that didn't happen. But, like, it's really hard to find anything to complain about. I mean, yes, parts of the defense didn't look good, but those were the parts of the defense that we didn't expect to look good, right? The parts that we were hopeful for, Jamal Adams was everywhere. The offense let Russ cook, and it was super successful. And, DK went off, and they got Greg Olsen involved, and the offensive line looked pretty good. Like it was all positives. I mean, and yeah, it was just a ton of fun to watch. And it was, you had the tweet about there's a 90% chance that people would complain about the way they won, and they found the 10%. They won in that 10% range, and I think everyone was really happy with it.
That's cool. Yeah, I was happy about that too. But before I hand it over to Evan and ask for some of his thoughts, like I do want to go a little deeper, because this was like, I mean, as it was unfolding and as the game, like the first series, I mean, they came out throwing, they kept throwing. There's plenty of chances for them to kind of revert back to their other, like, what was going through Nathan Ernst's like head at that point? Were you like, oh, they're going to screw it up now? Or like, what are you thinking as that's all happening?
Yeah. I was pretty skeptical to start. He gets sacked on the very first play, so they're in like second and 17,
So
whatever.
perfect.
Right? Yeah, and so like immediately I'm kind of like, oh boy. And then they kind of have to pass at that point, and they did, which to their credit, sometimes they've kind of decided to play it safe in those situations. And then they were featuring Carson quite a bit in the running game or in the passing game early, which was good. But running back targets aren't like super duper efficient. So for me, it took me a little bit to kind of like realize like they're really doing this. Like they're really they're doing everything that we could have asked them for. Where I really, really bought in and where I really, really got excited about what this could mean for the season was late in the third quarter when they were already up like a couple touchdowns, and they threw like two like 15-yard, 20-yard passes to Tyler Lockett, right? And they just immediately, and the announcers were saying, oh, this is the right time to start running more, and they were just like, no, we're gonna keep the foot on the gas and go. And that was when I was like, oh, here we go, we're doing this. So
yeah, that's a great point, Evan. So bringing you into this, at what point did you start getting your hopes up that or at least noticing that this was different? And at what point were you like, oh, they're like really doing it? Like, what were those two moments for you?
Yeah, those first two drives were really exciting and impressive, but it wasn't until that fourth down deep shot to DK Metcalf down the left sideline, 4th and 5, where it was like, oh shit. Like, that was ballsy. Like, that was the kill shot. Jeff, I think, said it perfectly in like our post-game show. That was when I felt like the Falcons lost that game, is when DK Metcalf caught that touchdown. Momentum completely shifted. Game-changing play, obviously. I couldn't be more impressed with their run-pass splits. Like, I thought I loved where they sprinkled in runs with the exception of like the Travis Homer sort of pitch toss, which was kind of a weird play. I don't think anybody really liked that. I'd rather them give that, toss to Carson. You really can't complain with their offensive approach, but the one thing I'll just mention that sort of got forgotten about, I feel like, in the whole let Russ cook movement is like Seattle went hurry up like quite a bit, like up tempo. Like Russell was snapping that ball quick, trying to catch the defense off guard. Like, to me, that's almost as important, if not as important, as the run pass splits. Like, we've seen all the stats that show Russell Wilson is far more efficient, far more effective in an up tempo offense. That's just as of a big deal. Like, if this offense, go ahead.
No, finish your thought.
I was just gonna say, I mean, you can't. I can't be more impressed with what I saw from the offense on Sunday. The only thing that I'll say I left kind of disappointed by, but I'll give the caveat of like Julio and Ridley are really good. I thought our corners got picked on pretty hard. Shaquille Griffin didn't look great. He looked okay. I think the PFF grades were actually pretty low on him. If I'm not mistaken.
We'll talk about that. We'll get there. We're going to talk about the good stuff for a while.
Yeah. I mean, and then Quinton Dunbar, I felt like struggled too, but I mean, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, like, I don't think it's a big deal because Calvin, I think, and Ridley or Julio and Calvin Ridley are really good. So we'll wait and see. But overall, very excited with the performance they put together on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, the things I'd throw in addition to what you guys all covered a lot of good ground, but we've talked about offensively. It's not just about passing more often. That's not what this is just about. It's not just about even up tempo. It's about also passing in less predictable situations. So early downs where it's less known that you're going to be passing the ball. Part of the reason that, people really hate run, pass is because by the time you get to that third down, most people know that you're going to pass and you're going to see the most exotic sub packages from defenses. And it just is a harder situation to succeed in. So having some variety and catching teams off guard is a big part of it. We also have talked about passing differently. So it's not just the deep shots. Russell is an excellent deep ball, maybe the best deep ball thrower in the NFL. Great. But every play doesn't have to be play action, deep pass, right? There are opportunities to get some of these shorter passes, some of these high percentage throws. We've even talked about the screen game, which, like, for the old time Seahawks fans, I don't know if we have any that listen, at least to the live show. Old people like me don't listen to live broadcasts. They listen to podcasts at best. But in any event, John L. Williams, back in the day for the Seahawks, was an amazing screen game guy. And there's no reason that couldn't be part of the Seahawks offense, but it just hasn't been. So they did all of those things. They passed early. They passed at various levels, various depths. They passed across, like, horizontally and vertically. They challenged the defense and stretched them in every way. I'll tell you the point where I was like most floored of all of it. When they were ahead comfortably, and it was 2nd and 29 after a couple of penalties, and I can't remember what happened. I turned to my son. I'm like, they got to run here and run clock. They're not going to get the first down. Just accept it. Don't be stupid. Run clock. And he's like, no, like they should try to get back into field goal range. And sure enough, like, they passed twice, once to Lockett and then to Freddie Swain. They didn't pick up the first down, but they got close and they got a field goal. Like, it was a small part of the game, but like the Seahawks of the past few years would have never, ever considered. In fact, like, even if they weren't ahead and it was 2nd and 29, they would have run the ball on that play. So, like, it was a pretty amazing difference. And I think we've all talked about it. It's been talked about quite a bit online. So I think the next question for this crew is it going to last? Was this a one game aberration, or do we feel like this team has opened and expanded? Like, I'll give you a couple of choices. I'll give you 3. This is what we're going to see every week. This is the new offensive approach and the new offensive philosophy and scheme. This is something we're going to see in weeks where the Seahawks feel like they have a decided advantage, against the secondary and are going to press the passing game more. Or this was literally like a one-time thing and they're going to go back to the Seahawks approach that they've had in the past years.
Ryan, before we rank and categorize and define that, can we define like what this week means? So, like, are we talking top 5 in early down run passing splits? Are we talking top 10? Because I think they were top 2 or 3 this week, right? Mm-hmm. So let's define that before we sort of dive into that. Are we calling it top 5 or top 10, or what's the ballpark?
I mean, to me, it's just a matter of like
philosophy.
Is it going to look like this? Is it going to, and you can define that as you'd like, I guess. I don't think it has to be the top 3 of early down pass rate in order for this to be significant. But, if you want to say top 10, if that helps, fine. But it really, to me, is like those 3 choices. Is this going to be what we see every week? Is it going to be something that's matchup dependent? Or is this going to be just a one-time thing? And Evan, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I don't think every week they're going to be as aggressive as they were this Sunday. I think we're all probably pretty confident in saying that. Do I think they're going to lean a top 10 early down neutral situation, 55% pass run split? I think so. I do. I think there's been a psychological shift with Pete. I think they've had some discussions internally, and I think there's been some interesting sort of like comments been made and tweets made by Seahawks beat reporters that were saying like Brian Schottenheimer tried to start this, in the 2 games of 2019 or 2018, whatever it was, and Pete sort of put the kibosh on this. So maybe this is Brian Schottenheimer's, own twist to the offense within Pete Carroll's system. And I hope that's the case, but I believe that's the case. I think they'll be a top 10 sort of pass run split offense moving forward.
Dana, how about you?
I think it's going to be really situational. I mean, logically, that would be the right way to coach, right? Like if you've got a team like coming up with the Patriots, which I'm sure we'll talk about, their secondary is crazy, right? And so do you want to then be super pass heavy? I don't know that that's logical. And so I'm assuming that it will be, matchup dependent. At the same time, I don't know why this has happened this week, but I've agreed with Evan like 4 or 5 times this week, and it's really shooken who I am to my core. So now I'm just teasing, but we have agreed a lot lately. And I agree with Evan. I think that, I don't know if Pete looked at, Shadi and said, you know what? Give it a try. I'll give you some games. Let's see what happens. I don't think that happened, but I think there has been a shift in saying we've been stagnant the last couple of years. We need to shake something up. This is the most logical shakeup. And so maybe that is what's happening. Do I think it'll be every game? No, I think it'll be real matchup dependent.
All right, Nathan, I'm going to say it's on the 75% of that spectrum. I think it's going to mostly be this is going to be the default approach, but I think there's going to be certain matchups where they revert a little bit. And this week might be one of them where they do that. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. And this week is definitely going to be a big tell. I think we're going to learn a lot real fast about how committed they are to this. It does make sense that, they're not going to be able to shred every defense the way they did the Atlanta defense. And so that is going to kind of change how you play a little bit. So I think that they'll move back, in terms of the early down passing and just the overall pass rate. I mean, Pete's already come out and said, hey, we got to get Carson more carries, which is a little bit of a silly way to go about it. And also he's got incentive to lie on that, right? I mean, he doesn't want to just come out and say, yep, we're going to run out the exact same game plan. Like, he's not going to telegraph that. Yeah.
Wait, Pete Carroll lies?
Sometimes it's happened once or twice.
He's one of the best liars in the NFL.
Never.
He actually is probably one of the best liars.
He is pretty good.
He's an exceptional liar. I will stand him on that.
Yeah.
He is very convicted in terms of his takes, even though he knows he's not telling the truth.
But I think everything that was said here, they said that they worked on this all off season, right? I mean, and they're not going to do that for just one game. So I think there's a shift here. I think that we'll see definite movement, when we look back compared to 2018 and then 2019 and then this year. But how far along they are in this and how committed to it they are, I think, like I said, this week is going to be the real test of that.
Yeah, it's the Pete Carroll comments about the run that has come out a lot. Obviously, everybody's really on Seahawks Twitter is very focused on that because they have a feeling that it means he's going to revert. On one hand, I will say I was pretty upset. My most frustration with the Seahawks offense, of which there's very little on Sunday, was how they split up carries with Carson and Hyde and Travis Homer. Like, Carson is significantly better than those other guys. They should be getting his scraps, not be splitting time with him. So the only thing I can imagine is maybe they're trying to ease him in physically and whatever. And I can kind of get that. But if their plan is to split carries with Carlos Hyde, I mean, especially if I'm Chris Carson, I'm pissed in my contract year if that's how they're going to go about it. So that would be something to watch. But let's shift a little bit and talk about I'm going to give you 2 options, and you guys if you want, you can go off track here. Who was more impressive on Sunday, Russell Wilson or Jamal Adams? Dana, you look like a Cheshire cat ready to pounce.
Jamal Adams. There's no question. And the reason why it's nothing against Russell, but we know he can do that. We know that that's what he's made of. We see that from him, usually not till the fourth quarter, but we know it's there, right? Jamal Adams just taking over this defense, being a leader. And I'm not saying that Bobby is not, because Bobby is without question the leader of this defense, and Jamal gives him props for that all the time. But I think the fact that Jamal Adams just came in and knew the defense and took over the way he did, it was so impressive, because no one would have faulted him if it took him a game or two to kind of get into the groove of this, right? But that's just not who he is. And I love, again, I'm a defense lover, so I'm a little biased, but I just think that it got me real excited to watch him play. I was thrilled with what Russell was doing, but I know that's what Russell can do. Jamal, I was just so happy he was in a Seahawks uniform.
Yeah. Well, when you're wandering the desert, a glass of water sounds pretty good. So
absolutely.
Nathan, how about you? I mean, that was two pretty impressive performances. When I was watching it, I was like, MVP and Defensive Player of the Year on the same team? Maybe. How about you? Where were you on those two?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little hard to say without the all 22 and just see what Adams was doing when he wasn't on the screen. But and then yeah, I mean, the whole, we've seen Russ do this for years now, and we've never seen Adams do this. And I would say that I don't know that we've seen a lot of amazing defensive players on this defense, but I don't know that we've seen somebody play quite the way that he did, which doesn't say he's better than Earl or better than Cam or better than Sherm or better than Bobby, right? I just don't remember seeing a player that was everywhere quite like that, right? The stuff that Earl did that was amazing just was different, and a lot of times you didn't get to see it. And Cam did amazing things where he would, pancake guards and stuff like that, right? But yeah, every play Adams was somewhere doing something, and it felt like he was involved in making an impact, and that kind of Seattle's players before have always been very good, but they've always fit a role, and Adams was just like, tell me what to do and I'm going to be awesome at it, and I'm going to make a million tackles and get sacks, and it's just like, what can't he do? Like,
yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Evan, I think Nathan said it really well. Obviously, Adams is very different than the players we've had there before. People started by saying, oh, yeah, he's going to be Cam Chancellor. He's not Cam Chancellor. Like, he's a very different player. I mean, he does some of what Cam does. He does some of what Earl did. For my money, I can't say for certain I've seen a better game for a Seahawks safety in the Pete Carroll era. And I think we have two Ring of Honor safeties that have played with him. I'm not saying that it was, but I searched in my memory banks, and it's not like I'm like, oh yeah, this game by Earl or this game by Cam. I mean, maybe the Super Bowl for Cam, right? Like, like there's very few, and like Adams was in almost every play, even the ones he wasn't making. I can't remember for sure, but there was a play at the goal line. He came off the edge, grabbed the running back's leg, kept him from like getting maybe into the end zone by an inch. Pretty sure that's where there was a fourth down that then Benson Mayoa, was able to sack Ryan, and like things like that. I mean, he was just everywhere. So, I mean, where were you on Russ and Jamal on Sunday?
Yeah, I hate this question because they were both amazing. So it's like if I choose one, I'm pitting one against the other. Russell was near perfect. DK had a couple drops, and those were like, I think, 2 of the 3 incompletions he had. I can't point to a single throw that Russ had where I was like, that was off or behind a receiver or something like that. Jamal was all over the place. I mean, I'm at a loss for words with what we saw from Jamal.
I'm very happy with the question then. It did what it was intended.
I mean, but let me answer the question in a different way.
Yeah, go.
I'm more excited with what we saw from Bobby Wagner yesterday or on Sunday.
He looks so good.
Yeah,
I know the hype. I know the hype is around Jamal Adams, and the hype deserves to be around Jamal Adams. But what Bobby Wagner did on Sunday was just as impressive. Also, all over the place. Coverage, multiple tackles for losses. Like after the year he had last year, where he took a little bit of a step backwards, there were some schematic changes.
Step.
Sure, whatever. Schematic changes may have been an impact there. That was not the case on Sunday.
That's exactly right, and I take the L there. Let's do a quick round of what we got wrong. I'll kick it off. I was very clear that we needed to be at least aware that Bobby could be on the decline. Like there were signs that age-wise, whatever, like steps, speed. He looked as fast as he's ever looked. He was on his coverage was one of the things he struggled with last year, and he was just white on rice. I mean, he was just everywhere there. It was one of his best games. He came out graded as an elite player, as he had been almost every other year of his career besides last year. And guys, I mean, basically what that means is if you have an elite all-pro safety and you have an elite all-pro middle linebacker, this defense is going to be better. I mean, just it will be better than it was last year if just those two things change, let alone the other things we have to see. So, yeah, Bobby, I think that's a great call out, Evan, and Dana. I know you want to jump in there too.
Yeah, I think that it was just, it really was a fantastic from Bobby. It was Bobby from 3 years ago. You know what I mean? It was Bobby when he was just, so fast and so quick. It was thrilling to watch him play again. And I know that we disagreed on that a little bit because I didn't have, as many questions about Bobby. I thought he, was probably injured last year. Like you said, scheme, there was something up there. I will admit though, the one thing I got wrong, and I kind of glazed over this a little bit because I was worried, but I was really worried that we were going to have a no preseason week 1. Like I really thought that without seeing any film on the Falcons, we have no idea what they were changing up, which wasn't much, right? Like it looked like the Falcons of last year. And so I was really worried that we were going to have a lot of skips and bumbles and from both offense and defense. And I guess you could say DK Metcalf dropping those couple might have been it. I don't think so. I think Russ was throwing that ball really hard. And I think that, maybe it just bounced off his hands a little bit. But that's where I really expected to have some first quarter blues. And man, was I wrong about that.
Yeah. I will say, answer my own question. Russell to me was like clearly the best player on the field that day. And as much as I said, I can't clearly say there has been a better safety game that I can remember off the top of my head in the Pete Carroll era than what Jamal did. I'm not sure there's been a clearly better game that Russell's had than what he did. I mean, 31 of 35, at least one of those was absolutely a drop, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 322 yards. I mean, through every kind of pass. I think his pass where he evaded the
side throw,
Finley, threw it at sidearm to, I think it was Demo, to David Moore, I think it was. It's like crazy. That wasn't just a normal play. So, I mean, that was as good. Basically, he has been pushing and pushing and pushing to get more responsibility and more of the game on his shoulders. He finally was given the chance to do that. He was finally given an offensive line that wasn't so putrid that he had no chance to even possibly live up to that. And he was perfect. Like, you can't be better than that. You really can't. And I sent it on Twitter, but there's literally been one game in the history of the NFL by any quarterback like what Russell did on Sunday. The only other player who's ever had something similar to that is Drew Brees in 2011. That's it. So, I mean, it was an all-timer game, and it was week 1 with no preseason. So I'm feeling pretty good about my 50-vote unanimous MVP prediction right now, and that this is going to be the best season of his entire career. I feel like very good about that potential right now. And if that's the case, sky's the limit, right? For what this team can be. So before we start turning our attention to the Patriots game, let's do one more thing about the Falcons game looking back. Any other players that you guys, give you one or two that you can call out that stood out to you in that game or caught your attention? And it can be a rose or a thorn. And in fact, maybe let's do both. Give one and the other to a player you thought did well and a player that you were a little disappointed in. Nathan, let's start with you.
Again, it's a little unfair. I mean, the all 22 hasn't come out, and so who knows how he really looked. But I know Quill got a lot of negative reviews and he had rough patches. The guy that stood out to me a lot for having bad moments was Dunbar. Like, I felt like he had some just surprisingly bad moments, and going back and just rewatching the broadcast and rewatching some of the plays where they do let you see downfield more, it didn't seem right. Like and what concerned me is that he didn't seem comfortable. He didn't seem instinctive. And so that worries me a little bit. They're doing a lot of different stuff. And so maybe that's also kind of what's going on with Quill. I mean, maybe both of these guys, Dunbar coming from a new team and then Quill maybe dealing with a lot of the blitz packages that they were running and how they have to kind of adjust how they cover. I think that factored in, but yeah, I see what I was hoping to see at all from Dunbar. So that would be my thorn. For a rose, I mean, there's a lot of kind of options on this one. Quandre Diggs probably deserves a shout out. I don't know if he was, he wasn't the best player on the defense. He might not even been the second best player, depending on how you feel about, how good a day Bobby had. But he was around. He was doing things. He looked good. So yeah, maybe Quandre Diggs is the guy that I would say. And again, no to all 22, so I could be tweeting out horrible clips of Diggs tomorrow. I reserve that right. But yeah, I felt good about what I saw from him and him being, an important part of this defense.
How about you, Evan?
Yeah, for the thorn, I thought this is kind of an underrated player that maybe it's a slight, but we didn't really hear anything from Rasheem Green on Sunday.
Yeah.
I was hoping that he would, and of course it's just, week one. So, he could easily turn it around and build off of his year 2 in Seattle system. But I was hoping he would make a larger impact on Sunday. He didn't. We'll see what that means for, moving forward. In terms of my rows, I feel like Damian Lewis rebounded strong in the second half. He had a pretty weak first half. I think it was like 2 holding penalties that he had. He struggled in pass protection throughout the game, but his run blocking improved and he definitely rebounded in the second half. So I think Damian Lewis actually was a pleasant surprise on Sunday. I really do believe that.
Yeah, Dana, mine is for Thorn. I'm giving it to 2 guys, Jaron Reed and Poona Ford. I thought they were at best average on Sunday, and those are our only 2 defensive tackles that are starting quality players. Seahawks need a lot more than average from them, and I think you could argue they were below average for a decent portion of that game. So that wasn't great, and definitely I'm hoping that they add to that defensive tackle rotation. As far as Rose, I'm going to go with a guy that I've been super, super down on. My expectations were super low, and so part of it's that. But Brandon Shell, he had one play where he gave up a pretty clear sack, did not pick up Grady Jarrett on a twist and led to the sack. So I saw that. There might have been other bad plays, but he was not a dumpster fire at right tackle. I think that it's really easy to forget some of the first weeks of past seasons for the Seahawks, where in the Miami, Cincinnati, where it's just literally a jailbreak on every snap, and Russell doesn't even have a chance to get the ball off. And so I thought Shell was okay, which is a lot better than I thought. I was expecting not much. Dana, how about you before we turn our attention to the Pats?
Let's see. I too had problems with the corners, but I have a little different view on it. I think that one was knocking the rust off a little bit. I do think that is part of it. I think with Dunbar, though, I do believe that had more to do with him still kind of learning and he was gone on and off, so he wasn't in camp all the whole time. So I'm reserving judgment on Dunbar for at least a couple more weeks. Griffin didn't do much for him wanting a big contract, you know what I mean? Or him, if he wants to re-sign with Seattle, this was not his game to put on his highlight reel. So I'm hoping that we see a little bit more from him in the future. I think we will. Again, I think it's week 1. But the one guy that I think is, the Rose, that it's because we never said his name, was Ethan Posick. I mean, in center. And I think that's what it is. You didn't notice him. You didn't see him. He wasn't there, right? And so by not making any major bumbles, it's almost like he was doing exactly what he needed to do at the time. So I was impressed from that. I expected a few issues there. So I'm excited about that. And I do want to say, for as much as you guys like to dog on our old man linebackers, Mayowa and Bruce Irvin did a decent job on Sunday. I was impressed. Look at your face. You're like, dang.
Ryan has an interesting take on that.
Okay. I mean, I've been as bullish as I can be about Irvin and Mayowa. I thought they were pretty. pretty
They
poor.
were
You know what I envision?
They're below average.
You know what I envision
No.
right now? Fast forward to February 10th, 2021. Evan Hill is in Seattle with Brian Nemhauser. Both of our wives are attending a candlelit dinner. Evan sips in a very expensive bottle of red, a massive Daniel's broiler steak. Things are great. Life is good.
Yeah, Evan's feeling pretty good about his bet with me right now, and I would too if I was in his shoes. Yeah, they were not efficient pass rushers. We can agree to disagree there, Dana, but
Yes.
this is
I think
a
that they
Falcons
were.
team that passed a ton on Sunday. How many pass attempts did they have? 50.
A lot. Yeah.
And so people focus on the sacks or the pressures or the hits, but it's really how many of those things it's how many of those things you do per pass rush snap that you get. That's what you're really looking for in terms of how efficient and how effective a pass rusher they are. Benson Mayowa had one total pressure. It happened to be a sack, but he had one total pressure in 47 pass rush snaps. That's not okay. That's not acceptable. That's not even like average. That's not okay. And so the Seahawks need him to be better. Can he be? Totally. I'm not like giving up on him by any stretch, but I don't think that was a game that I would like hold up for him as like, okay, he's proven my point about being a good pass rushing addition. That was not the game I would hold up. So
I'll take that sack. We didn't have any last year. I'll take
I know. You're right. All right. So let's talk about this Patriots game. We've got Nathan's favorite player going against his second favorite team. So Cam Newton has moved over to the Patriots. He is playing for Bill Belichick, which is one of the kind of most fascinating marriages. I don't think you could have, like, both as a player and as a person, I don't think you could have picked a better foil for Tom Brady than Cam Newton, right? Like, and so how that marriage is going to go through the first week of the season, this team, not only did they add Cam Newton and lose Tom Brady, but they also had a bunch of guys opt out of the season. Dante Hightower, I believe, was one of the guys, like one of their best linebackers, opted out. They lost some of their offensive linemen, but they still have one of the best secondaries, if not the best secondary in the NFL. So here's the thing. And I want to know where everyone is on this, because I kept looking at that score against the Dolphins. They won 22-11, I think was the score. And like Cam Newton was the leading rusher with 75 yards. Sony Michel was the next leading rusher with 37. Cam Newton threw it 19 times. And I'm like, okay, the Patriots just aren't that good. But every advanced metric says Patriots are like one of the top 5 teams in the NFL based off that game. So, and then I'm like, okay, that secondary is pretty good. What do we make of this team? Are you guys looking at the Patriots and you're like, oh, this is a big test for the Seahawks? Or are you looking at the Patriots and you're like, licking your chops? This is the game you want. Nathan, you clearly want some attention. So why don't you go first?
I wasn't
No,
listening.
I gotta grill Nathan for a second. Nathan, why do you like annoying football players?
I like fun football players who do fun things and have charismatic, electric, beautiful smiles.
Why do you like annoying personalities?
I don't.
Do you like Evan?
There's no annoying.
Like you, Evan.
Well,
Oh,
all
damn.
maybe.
I gotta log off after that one.
Sorry.
No, that was fair. That was fair. I set you up. Go back to your question. I'll relinquish you.
I was enjoying that line of questioning. I was gonna let you hang out there on your own. So I'm gonna keep my Cam takes to myself because they always get criticized when I don't like Cam for whatever reason. So so what do you make of this Patriots team? Based on what you saw the Seahawks in the first week and what you saw or what you know of the Patriots so far, what are you expecting on Sunday?
Me?
Yes, Nathan.
Oh, okay.
You have a towel over your head and you should be sulking right now while you give.
Oh man, I wish I have a napkin here. I can do this.
Now look down and look really like somber.
Only I could have a smile here.
And give me one word answers like after the Super Bowl loss.
No.
God. This is great. This is fantastic listening. So yes, keep going. So what do you make of this game?
I mean, I'm pretty nervous because it was really interesting going into the season, I thought, because there was a lot of questions of like, oh, can the Patriots really use Cam? Can he fit into their offense? Like, how's this going to work? And, there's kind of like two thoughts that I had about that. One was I thought back to that game where they started Jacoby Brissett, and he was like the third string quarterback that year against the Texans, and they ran triple option, and I think they kicked the Texans' ass in that game. They definitely won. So like Belichick has shown the ability to use a mobile quarterback. And then just Belichick has shown year in and year out that he is a flexible coach. Like he's ran a ton of different offenses, a ton of different defenses. Sometimes in the same season, they kind of run these hybrid things. So I thought it was odd that there was, skepticism about that. And it makes me nervous now going into this game because what we saw from Seattle's defensive line. I mean, it was pretty interesting going back and rewatching. Like I noticed them just running a straight 3-4 a lot more than I had when I watched it live, and a lot more than I've ever seen them do before. They've done some stuff with double eagle, and once in a while, once in a blue moon, you'll see an actual true 3-4 look. But they were running it maybe on like 20% of the plays that I'd gone back and watched. So it became a significant part of the defense. So they're asking different things of the defensive line, and I think that we probably need to adjust our expectations based on that. But, I also saw a lot of running plays where the defensive line, and especially the interior, just crumbled, right? And this Patriots team is going to be able to take advantage of that. Cam is going to be able to take advantage of that and pick up a lot of yards on the ground. And so this will be a true test for the defense for sure. I think every offense is probably going to be a pretty big test for this defense. And then they match up well offensively, right? We talked about it earlier. This is going to be really interesting to see how committed they are to this passing attack, because the Patriots secondary and their pass defense last year was really good. And is it, are they going to be able to challenge Russ in this passing offense a lot more than, what we saw last week?
Evan, I'm all over the place on this game. I really am. I'm like, I just watching the first part of the game between the Patriots and Dolphins, and I'm like, oh my God, Ryan Fitzpatrick is awful. He was making terrible passes that Russell Wilson would never, ever make. And when he was making like decent throws, there was yards to be gained. He was doing fine. That game was like 7-3, like with a few minutes to go in the first half. I can't remember even how it ended in the first half, but Patriots were not dominating them. The Patriots offense was like super basic. It was just a bunch of different varied Cam Newton runs and some like throws that were, he only had 19 throws. And Pete Carroll's played against Cam Newton almost every year, and they've defended. Carolina ran a very varied run offense with Cam Newton, with better running back options than I think what he has up there as alternatives. But then I'm like, oh man, but our run defense was not good on Sunday, at least to start the game. It got better, and how are we going to match up with that secondary? And so I'm kind of all over the place. Where are you looking at this game?
Yeah, they had an interesting game on Sunday. So like you said, Cam Newton, he threw the ball 19 times, but he ran the ball 15 times for 75 yards and a pair of touchdowns. So Sony Michel had a pretty quiet day. I'm not super afraid of New England's passing attack. Like, they have Julian Edelman, who's not that great without Tom Brady. I think he's kind of overrated, actually. They have N'Keal Harry, the first round wide receiver pick from ASU, I think it was, last year. He hasn't really done anything. Not worried about him. So I guess my question is, like, who are their weapons on offense outside of, Cam running option football? I mentioned this last week. I think it's really going to be about stopping their run game, just because I don't think they really have a passing attack or a strong passing or an effective passing attack. I think Jamal Adams is going to, if the Seahawks win, it's going to be because Jamal Adams had a big day in the box. He was rushing the passer a lot, against Atlanta, but we could see him flying down like a torpedo missile for some tackle for losses, whether it's Sonny Michel or Cam Newton. Long story short, I'm not afraid of the New England offense. Their defense is a lot scarier. They were really good last year. I think they were top 2 NFL defenses last year, depending on which advanced measure you used. But I think they're bound for a little bit of regression, and they had a ton of players opt out on the defensive side of the ball, especially. There's been a lot of talk about whether Seattle should alter their game plan significantly about with this New England defense, but I really don't think they should. With how Russell Wilson played last week, like I've said this on Twitter multiple times, like Russell Wilson is better at his job than New England's defensive players are at theirs. I think when Russell is cooking, like when Russell is hot, like he was last Sunday, especially starting the season like this, you just got to go back to your best player. And I think they got to let Russ cook again this week for them to win.
Yeah, Dana, Evan and I kind of got back and forth on this. Like, I don't feel like the Seahawks have to run the same game plan that they did against Atlanta, and it might make some sense for them. I just care that they score. I don't really care how they score. And when the thing that scares me the most about this game, I guess, is I just feel like the Seahawks should win handily. I really do. Like, I think the Seahawks should be the better team. I think they have to stop. If they can find a way to slow down the run game of the Patriots, I don't think the Patriots offense can keep up with the Seahawks offense, no matter who the Patriots defense is. Got a ton of respect for Bill Belichick, and now he has got 1 week of film on the Seahawks and their new approach, and so he's going to have some ideas of how to slow it down. He's definitely got a secondary that can cause some challenges. But, I mean, tell me why I should feel like, hey, this game's going to be tight and the Seahawks may lose. Like, what are some reasons why that could be?
Well, it just, we talked about this in chat, but I just was reminded, we do want to say, our condolences to Bill Belichick because his mother passed away, 98 years old. It was wonderful. 98 years old of natural causes. And so we, of course, send our heartfelt to him because, that's just sad for anyone.
Happened tonight, like literally like 2 hours ago.
Just today. Yeah.
Okay.
So we will send our condolences to him. I have a handful of points for this. So you're right. So Patrick Chung, Dante Hightower both opted out for COVID. Then they lost a few other players that was really, kind of their big push. So Kyle Van Noy is gone. We have Jamie Collins is gone. There's quite a handful. But here's where I have a couple of questions. So you guys are so worried about the run defense, but Atlanta only ran for 72 yards between all of them. Now, granted, they throw the ball all the time, but the longest run was a 15-yard run. And so I feel like maybe, well, yes, we agree that line has some work to do in that situation. I don't think you add that. And then the fact that this defense practices against a very mobile quarterback every single week. They've played Cam Newton a zillion times. They know exactly how he runs. I'm not nervous about that. I think that there will be a decent game plan for that. So I'm not so worried about that. I don't think that the passing offense, I agree once again with Evan. People need to start writing this down, but that I don't think that they have the weapons. And I think that I was reading today on Twitter, OBJ is up for trade. And I'm like, I triple dog dare Belichick to stick him in New England with Cam Newton. Because can you imagine Bill Belichick with both of those personalities? It would be mind blowing, I think, at that point. So, but I think they do need some help up there. They do need some more weapons because nothing that they did really kind of stood out. I'm kind of like you, Brian. I was sitting there watching that game and I'm like, it just looked disjointed. Nothing looked super smooth. Everything looked like it was forced. And this is a Miami team that really is going to take a while to settle. The Miami head coach, Brian Flores, I have a lot of respect for him. And he said, you're going to have to give me 3 years, guys. Like, this is not going to be, right away. I agree with Fitzpatrick. He just looked a mess. They looked like a team that needed preseason. Let's put it that way. But I just wasn't overly impressed. That should have been hugely dominant. It shouldn't have been an 11-21 game.
No.
It should have been more. If the Patriots are what everyone is saying, I saw them ranked 3 in a power ranking today. I was baffled by that. And I know, like you said, the metrics add up, but it just on film in front of your face, watching that game, you didn't see it. You just didn't see it. And let me tell you, it drives me insane that Cam Newton holds on to that ball for 4 hours before he gives it to his running back. And I know it's a distraction, but it just looks weird. It just doesn't look well. So I think if the Seahawks can always have a spy on Newton, because that's how you play him, and that's how they've always played him, and they can shut down that run game, that the passing offense is not scary coming from New England at all. I agree with the secondary. I think that there's going to have to be a game plan switch from Atlanta to this game because that secondary is good. Even though they lost Chung, they are a good, really good secondary. So that'll have to make some adjustments. But I'm not nervous about this game. And maybe I'll be proven very wrong, but I'm just not nervous about it.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm at, and we'll kind of get into predictions now as we start to close it out. I mean, I think Nathan, you made this point on Sunday, and I really, really wish you had tweeted it. I don't think you ever did, but you know, the difference between Tedrick Thompson wearing 33 at safety and Jamal Adams wearing 33 at safety, pretty big, right? Like you go into a game like this. It's jokes aside, you have an option quarterback and a guy that's moving all over the place. You've got Jamal Adams or you've got Tedrick Thompson, even Jamal Adams or Bradley McDougald. Like Jamal Adams covers the entire field. Did you guys see the heat map of where he was on Sunday? I mean, it was basically just an ink blot of the entire field. And you know, he's exactly the kind of player you want in this game. So as we kind of round robin here, I think the Seahawks win this game going away. I think they win it by more than 2 touchdowns. You know, so I think the magic number, and I think it'd be really impressive because I do have respect for any Bill Belichick defense, and I think he's got a secondary that he can work with. If you can score over 20 points, I think that's a good performance. If you score over 25, I think that's a very good performance. I think we're going to see the Seahawks put up, I'm going to say 24, and I think the Patriots are going to score 10. I think that's about what I've got going on, and I'm tempted to make it a bigger margin than that. So let's start the Seahawks season as the anti-2019 from a point differential standpoint, and I think that's what we're going to see. Nathan, now that we can see your lovely face, can you tell us where you were at on a prediction for this game?
I really so I picked them to lose in the preseason, the season predictions or whatever. But I'm pretty I'm overtaken by optimism, if you can't tell. I'm just giddy beyond belief after watching that game. So I think they'll win. And what did you say? 24-10, 27-10?
24. I'm going to go with 24-7. I'm going to revise 24-7.
That's saying a lot about that defense, I feel like.
I think it's saying more about the Patriots offense, but yes.
I'm going to go something more along the lines of like a 31-20. Yeah, we'll go 31-20. I think that they're going to keep it going. I think that that offense is crazy talented. And yeah, I mean, the Patriots secondary was good last year, but if Seattle continues to maximize that passing attack and their offense and the talent on it, it's a match for any defense. So sure, yeah, I'll go 31-20.
All right, Dana. I mean, doesn't look like so far that we're going to get a Josh Gordon edition. I know everyone wants to see him get to play against good old Bill. Philip Dorsett's another former Patriots receiver that may get a chance. We'll see. Where are you at on this game? What's your prediction?
I think Seattle will win too. I picked them to win when we were talking about this preseason. I don't know that it'll be quite as big. I'm really questioning whether having no fans in Seattle will impact that. If it'll, I don't know. It was mentioned multiple times. Pete Carroll mentioned a few others, how weird it was, how their piped in noise wasn't good, all that. So I wonder if that'll kind of screw with them a little bit, but probably not, but maybe. But I'm a little more, I think we're going to win, but I think it's going to be 24-17.
24-17.
Quite
Okay,
as wide.
you got a close one. Evan?
I can't believe with what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyways. Seahawks 41, Patriots 10.
No way.
Evan.
I'm revising my prediction. They are going to continue to let Russ cook, and they are going to shit all over the Patriots on Sunday Night Football.
We've broken him. He's a new Evan.
No, this is putting him back together. He was broken years ago. This is the Evan of old, where he would just be all sunshine.
I mean, okay. Let me turn this question back to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Say the Seahawks have a top 2 pass run rate like they did last week. I could guarantee you that happens on Sunday Night Football. How confident are you that the Seahawks win on Sunday night, and does that change your prediction at all?
Say it again. Top 2. I was distracted by.
Sorry. Yeah, he's driving this.
Nathan wearing a reverse jersey, Tom Brady jersey, and being so proud of himself. He's got I've never seen Nathan so happy as I see him right now. The Tom Brady jersey on backwards and a Jim Tom Sula backdrop for no reason. It makes no sense. But
God,
say it again. Sorry,
Love
Evan. I was very distracted.
Say the Seahawks repeat their top 2 pass run rate split from last week in neutral situations.
Okay.
Does that change your prediction and confidence at all for Sunday Night Football against the Patriots?
Well, I mean, I just predicted a win by a lot. So,
but does it change it even more?
Not a lot for me. No, I think what would, if you told me that they were going to hold the Patriots to, an inefficient run game, pick your favorite metric for EPA on running or whatever. And we were going to see good run defense from the Seahawks, then I think it could get really ugly. Because I don't think the Patriots can pass consistently. If they couldn't do it against the Dolphins, I don't think they can do it against the Seahawks.
Okay, can I change my question?
Yeah.
What? And this is a better question for you and Dana. What if they sign Snacks tomorrow? What if they sign Snacks tomorrow? What if they do it?
No.
What
if they sign Snacks?
Wednesday. He has to go through testing. He won't play.
Oh, would he not be
no,
eligible?
He'd have to go through testing.
Isn't that 2 days though? No, is it longer?
It was a 3-day testing.
Not
So
like
then
a
that
week.
would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Oh, that's a bummer.
I don't know that he plays.
Okay, well, my question is invalid then.
But I get where you're going with that. And I think, yes, that would I'd probably bump my prediction for the Seahawks up to the 30s at that point.
Yeah.
And probably come down for the Patriots. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Nathan, I'm so taken. Like, we've had you, like, you've turned into some sort of like caricature in this show with napkins on your head and reverse jerseys. Like, yeah, I don't know what to make of it.
If all I'll say is if Pete Carroll passes like 70% of the time again this coming week, you just tune in, see what happens next week.
Oh boy, what does that mean?
Nothing. I can't back that up at all. But
I want to know.
Promoting the show, bozo.
Okay, no. Here's the deal. If they do that again,
I'll wear a Cam Newton jersey on the show.
You are going.
No,
to
I don't want to see that.
Shirtless.
No, I wish I did.
You will start the show shirtless.
No. You will get a Pete Carroll tattoo on your nipple, and his eyes will be your nipple.
No, here's what if they do it again, I'll put on the here's what I'll do. I'll put on this background and I'll just hide my face the whole time. Here, we'll do it like this. I'll come down here and I'll just do, you'll have Andy. It'll be something like this, but better, I promise. We'll make it work.
Wait. What's the threshold? Is it 70%? Is that what it is?
70%.
What were they on Sunday?
Here's the actual thing. If they do 70%, we will get to decide what your backdrop is for the next show, and you have no power to change it.
I feel like 70% is way too high because they didn't even hit 70% last week.
Well,
whatever. If it's the same as
whatever
last
it was in week 1 is what.
Okay, so it was 64% last week. So
right.
Okay, so that's what we're looking for.
Poor
Yes.
Nathan.
Okay, if they match that, then we get to pick your backdrop.
Agreed.
And I would like to say it's got to be through the first 3 quarters, because if the fourth quarter they're ahead by a lot, it's going to change, right?
They were ahead by a lot in the Falcons game.
Neutral script. Yes.
Yeah.
Neutral script.
That's what it was for week 1.
Neutral
for that
script.
64 number.
Yes,
yeah.
Nathan. Say yes.
All right. It can't be porn. I'm just.
Well, there's
saying.
Porn is not always.
Wait, so you don't want like a DK Metcalf background or anything like that? Then what you're saying?
Exactly.
DK Metcalf background's okay. I'll allow that.
That's porn though.
Oh my gosh. All right, everybody. Well, that wraps up our show for this week. If you haven't already, please go ahead and click subscribe. Oh, wait. Evan's got something. Either that or he has to go to the bathroom.
No, I have one last prediction. One last prediction. 5 days until the 49ers lose to the Jets and go 0-2.
Now we got to talk a little bit long. I'm sorry.
No, that's not.
Yep.
49ers.
Yep.
Forget the Jets. Let's just talk about that there is closet angst about Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco. We have achieved inception in that fan base about the fact that their quarterback is not elite. He's not even necessarily good. And if you look around 49ers conversations right now, they are really concerned about Jimmy Garoppolo. And their receivers, they just signed Mohamed Sanu.
They're desperate a little.
They're pretty desperate.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, that defense also did not look as dominant as the defense that we saw that led them to an 8-0 record last year and eventually to the Super Bowl. So, I know Evan wants to take credit for the Cardinals part of that, and the Cardinals played fine. But I thought the 49ers were more regressed than I thought that the Cardinals progressed.
I don't even know if the Cardinals played fine, to be honest with you. They didn't really put it together until the fourth quarter.
Right.
It was just more like the Niners were worse.
That's it. I mean, I think that it was a significant development that there were no teams in the NFC West that I saw that were like, oh, wow.
Did the Rams not impress you on Sunday Night Football?
They look like the Rams from last year to me.
And the Cowboys didn't impress.
Right.
As much as we all thought they would. Mm-hmm.
I thought those were 2 above average teams. That's what I thought they looked like. Neither one of them were like, oh, man, like they've really turned a corner. So, I mean, I got to say, like, I look across the whole NFL and every game that went on through the first week. Based on how the Seahawks played, there wasn't a team other than maybe the Ravens where I'd be like, oh, man. Like, and even then I'm like, okay, I'd like to see how that game would go. I wouldn't go into that game scared.
Forgetting somebody?
No, the Chiefs were fine, but the Seahawks looked better to me than the Chiefs did. Like I was more impressed with what I saw from the Seahawks offense than what I saw and from the Chiefs. And especially I thought the Seahawks had 2 better defenders than any of the defenders that were on the Chiefs on Sunday.
Look who loves the passing game. The Chiefs came out 50-50 split. They had a running back. What do you go for? Like 150. But you're sold. The nerds got to you.
Don't leave me, Brian.
I've never been anti-pass. That's never been the issue.
Brian has been radicalized. That's the truth.
Yes.
Oh God, I gotta go. I can't.
You've been radicalized. You're screaming, "Let Russ cook." You're running down the streets naked with a "Let Russ cook" tattoo. It's real. It's happening.
It was great, man. It was a lot of fun on Sunday. So, all right. Let's wrap on my irrational excitement. And please, if you haven't already, click subscribe, click the bell, get notified when we go live. If something crazy does happen, we will go live and probably talk about it. You want to know. Subscribe on Spotify, on Apple Play, iTunes, on Google Play, on iTunes, all those places, and at patreon.com/hawkblogger. You'll get added to our Slack channel, which, by the way, it's awesome because there's so many of you that have been joining. It's been like gumming up the system. I get to forward the join emails to Evan, who has to manually add you to the Slack channel, and he's so frustrated. It was
Stop donating to charity, assholes.
This was his idea, and I was like, Evan, how are you gonna like maintain this? He's like, oh, I'll do it. I'll handle it. And now he's like, stop sending me these emails.
All these assholes donating to charity are taking time out of my day.
So terrible.
It's true. It's true.
I'm kidding.
Thank
Keep
you for
donating.
joining.
Thank you.
So really, if you want to like really bother Evan, please continue to sign up at patreon.com/hawkblogger. $5 a month. Come on. That's great. It's going to be fun. The Slack channel has been popping. There's been a lot of good conversations. Even some of the folks in that channel have been starting to write their own articles, which we've shared out on Twitter because they've been really good. So a lot of good stuff in there. We keep it friendly, keep it good. And you know, all that good money goes to charity. So with that, I'm going to let it go. Thank you all.